just wait for another couple of minutes, just in case anybody else arrives, and then we'll get started. So just to remind you all, just whilst we're waiting for a few more people to arrive, I've got a link of some lyrics, because we're going to do a little sing-along at the end, partly because it's fun and partly just because I'm obviously approaching these breathing videos from a kind of singing perspective, and or like the perspective of a singer. So yeah, it's always fun and healthy to have a little sing-along, so I thought we'd try and do that at the end. This week, I thought we'd do the same song every day for this week, which will be Stand By Me. So hopefully if you're here for more than one session, then you might know the song a bit better the next time. But anyway, let's get started, and then as more people arrive, we can they can just join in. Okay, so we're gonna be twisting from our hips like this, but letting our arms just be completely relaxed and floppy, and sort of, if you can, sort of slap your back a little bit almost as you spin around. So if this is your first time to any of these sessions, welcome. Thank you for coming. If you've been doing any of these previously, then I want you to start even right now, as we're just beginning the warm-up, to be just conscious of your breathing and all the things that we've talked about that you should be thinking about when you're breathing. If you are new, don't worry, we'll get to it. But just as a general, you know, the more you start to understand about the breathing, just in all sorts of aspects of your daily life, just sort of take it into consideration. You know, it's not that you have to be constantly conscious of your breathing. I mean, it's obviously a natural instinct and you're born being able to breathe. But it's just to kind of have that mindfulness, and especially in a stressful situation, whether that's from the perspective of being a performer on stage or just anything in your daily life. If you're angry, having a row, anything like that, if you can just try and help control your breathing, you can calm down and then sometimes avoid losing control of your emotions as well. Okay, and shake it out. Okay, and we're now going to just bend our knees. Oh, there's a comment. Hi, thank you for coming. So we're going to just stand with our feet hip distance apart. If you don't know how, a lot of people initially, you know, are too wide, or that, you know, you don't always know. So what you want to do is find your hip bone. You usually have to sort of feel it with your fingers. Find that. Point your finger, your index finger, kind of down, and then ideally you sort of want your big toe in line with the hip bone. So that's sort of how you know that your feet are hip distance apart. And you know, it's a good sort of stance, you know, again, like if you're ever in any other sort of stressful situation, what we always want to try and be is nice and relaxed. We don't want any muscles to be working that don't need to be working, and we sort of want everything aligned as much as possible. So feet hip distance apart. You want your legs to be not too straight. So if, like me, you tend to hold tension everywhere in your body, what often happens is when people sort of straighten their leg, they'll lock the knee tight shut, and then you've got the tension in your leg. So what I do is I'll have, even if I'm standing straight, I will just have my knees slightly bent. If you're one of the people that can have straight knees and not hold any tension, good for you, I'm very jealous, but I tend to just slightly bend my knees, and that way you prevent all the tension creeping in unawares. So we're just gonna bend our knees and straighten them. But like I say, when we straighten them, we don't want to lock them tight. We just straighten them so that we're standing in a vaguely straight position. Everything nice and relaxed. And as you're doing this, again, if you've been to more of these sessions, hopefully you'll already start to have an inkling of what I'm about to say. If you're able to look in a mirror, that's great. We want to feel as though we've got a string coming out of our head, like as if we were a puppet, and if somebody was to let go of that string, we would sort of just flop down. And that holds your head in a good position. We don't want to be having our chin tilted up, which is one of my tendencies. We don't want to be looking down. We just want to be nice and straight, chin slightly down. A lot of people actually, when you say sort of straighten your head, they do sort of seem to go into that sort of position, but chin down a little bit, but not too much. And hopefully that also helps to kind of align the rest of your spine, and just sort of think about it, just picture your body being in the right position. Because apparently as well, like if, for example, for dancers, if they just go through a routine in their head, it does actually affect their the actual muscles in their body. So, you know, don't underestimate just the power of your own thought when it comes to relaxing and, you know, getting your body in the right position. So we want our shoulders to be down, but not forced down, just nice and relaxed. If, again, like me, if you're used to having tension, for example, in your shoulders, sometimes it feels a bit strange to be in a relaxed position, but don't worry about that. Just, you know, the more you do it, the more you'll get used to it. So now, as we're continuing to just try and think of our posture and not having tension anywhere, as I'm talking, I can feel my bum clenching a bit, because that's another common place to have tension. You know, just try and let all that go. Just be thinking through all the parts of your body, and whenever tension creeps in, and it will, don't stress about it, just try and relax it. So we're now going to try and visualize our diaphragm, which is this big muscle that's kind of like a sheet that sits underneath the bottom ribs. So if you're kind of not quite sure where that is, you can kind of feel around, find your ribs. When you get to the bottom ribs, that's where your diaphragm naturally sits. And when we breathe in and our lungs fill with air, the diaphragm drops down. And when we breathe out, the diaphragm is actually the muscle that we use to breathe out. It pushes the air out of your lungs. So unlike how a lot of people normally think, if you're going to take in a deep breath and you would actively take in the breath, I want you to flip that on its head, and I want you to think of, when you're breathing, just concentrate on breathing out, using the muscle to push the air out of your lungs, and then you're going to relax, and hopefully the diaphragm just drops, and when it drops, the air sucks back in, a bit like with a syringe. If you pull the syringe down, the air would just suck back in. So the effort that we put in is to breathe out, push the air out of our lungs, and then when we breathe in, we don't do anything, we just relax, and as the diaphragm just drops, the air just automatically comes back in. And then we're going to push out again, and then relax, and the air drops in. And so as we're doing this, bending our knees for quite a long time because of my explanation, we're just going to add some arm movements that are going to reflect what is happening in our lungs and our diaphragm and in this area. And we're also going to try and picture that in our mind's eye. And the arm movements, as we breathe out, we're going to bring our arms up to reflect the diaphragm pushing up. And then when we breathe back in, we're going to open out our arms like this, sort of reflecting how your rib cage opens up when it's filled with air. So let's just get back into our rhythm of bending our knees and straightening them. We're going to go to the side on our next one. Oops. If you do lose balance or anything, that's okay. I mean, ideally we don't want to. If we're nice and focused on what we're doing, we shouldn't lose our balance. But you know, it happens. Everybody, you know, has an off day. So try anytime, like I say, if you feel tension creeping in, just shake it out. If you feel tension creeping in, if you lose your balance, if things are not quite as they should be, just try not to give yourself a hard time about it and just sort of think, why is that happening? What can I do to correct these little problems? Because however sort of advanced you are at any of this stuff, you know, everyone has an off day. I mean, this isn't rocket science. All I'm really trying to get you to do is breathe and relax. So most people are going to be like, yeah, I know how to do that. But as you'll discover if you kind of go with it, it's a lot harder than you think it's going to be. So we've just got to constantly be going through thinking about all different parts of our body. Are they relaxed? And hopefully you'll start to get to know your body as well. You know, some people, I mean, I keep talking about shoulders, for example. I've probably mentioned it in every video so far. That's partly because it is quite a common place. Lots of people do have tension in their shoulders. So I think most people will relate, but I definitely do. So it's something that I'm constantly thinking of myself. But you might not have tension in your shoulders. You might have it somewhere like, so lots of people seem to get it in this muscle here. I occasionally do, but I don't tend to get so tense here. But if you recognize in yourself that that's a place that you feel tension, you know, something like this is good. You just want to try and relax your hands, shake it out. So I might not necessarily suggest that every time, but then you might think, okay, every time she talks about shoulders, let me think about my hands, because that's what I have a problem. Okay, so now we're just going to stand hip distance apart. If for whatever reason you feel like you would rather sit down, for example, if you work in an office or something and you're doing this breathing technique in order to, you know, when you're stressed at your computer or something that you're going to take a few moments, then sit down when you do this, because what I tend to find is when people learn all these exercises standing up, and then after a couple of years and it's all like embodied in your body, then you're great doing it standing up, and then you sit down and suddenly it all goes out the window, and vice versa. So ideally what we all want to be striving for is you could be standing on your head, or do, you know, like whatever position you're in, you're going to be good with all of this. But to begin with, especially if you're just starting out, be in the position that you're most likely to want to have the good breathing technique. For most people it tends to be standing, especially if you're like a singer or something and that's, you would stand up performing. But if you are sitting down, still try and think of having the correct posture but in a sitting position. Don't cross your legs. Don't try and hold your legs tightly together. Just relax. Have your knees slightly apart. You want to be on your sitting bones. You know, your bum is big and soft for a reason, and well, it's a few reasons, but one of those reasons is to be able to sit on it. So you want to sit nice and comfortably. If you are standing up, you want your feet hip distance apart. So like I said earlier, find your hip bone, have your toe above your hip bone, your big toe. Knees slightly bent or at least soft. We don't want them locked tight shut. Think of your posture. And now I just want you to just breathe. So we're gonna, as you're breathing, you can breathe in and out of your mouth. And I just want you to kind of, if you need to close your eyes to try and visualize it, I just want you to try and think of the diaphragm pushing the air out of your lungs and then dropping. And once you get to the end of the breath, if you can just hold it for a little, a couple of seconds, as long as possible really, and then just let your diaphragm drop as you relax, and the air just naturally sucks in. So we're not going, we're just allowing the air to come in, and then we're going to push it out, and using the effort is pushing the air out, and then we just relax to allow the air to drop in. So I want you to be imagining your lungs and your diaphragm and everything that's going on in this area. If you're squeamish about that, you can think of it as being balloons or anything you like really, as long as it's something that can fill with air and squeeze the air out. So I just want you to do that for a minute. If you've got your eyes open, try and find a spot that is eye level so that you don't have to be looking up or down or anything. And you're just going to breathe basically. But whilst you're doing it, you're thinking about what's happening and you're picturing it in your mind if you're able to. If it helps you as well, I find it sometimes quite helpful. You can kind of do these arm movements a little bit as well, if that kind of helps. Not everybody's able to kind of visualize things in their mind's eye. So if it helps you to just be still and concentrate and only this is moving, that's good. If you kind of get a bit more into it by doing the arm movements, you can continue doing them. But we're just breathing and kind of thinking, and interspersed with kind of concentrating on the breathing, just every now and then, just check through. I find it helps to sort of start at the top of your head and try and go down all your different body parts, specifically thinking about anywhere that you know that you tend to hold tension. And just, think about it, relaxing. And quite often that is, enough to help start the relaxing process. So now if you have got your eyes closed, I'd like you to open them. Look at something that's eye level, and we're just going to now channel that air. You can continue the arm movements or not, it's up to you. If you want to hold your hands on your sort of lower ribs, so that when you get to the end of the breath, you can actually, quite often you'll realise that you can squeeze out a little bit extra, even when you thought there was no air left, you actually can squeeze out a bit more. So whatever's comfortable for you, but I want you to continue trying to sort of picture it all in your mind's eye. And I want you to just channel that breath, just kind of blowing kind of thing, but channel it to a certain spot. And then when you get to the end of that breath, I want you to hold, like maybe try and squeeze, whether with your hands or just with your diaphragm, just try and squeeze out a little bit extra, even when you think that it's all gone. And then I want you to just try and hold it a little bit. So the idea is that our lungs are completely empty, and then when we're really desperate, we relax, and the air will just flood back in. I just want to say quickly, we are trying to stretch, so everything shouldn't always feel super in our comfort zone, but especially because I can't be in the room with you, if anything hurts or feels overwhelming or in a bad way, then obviously stop or do it a bit more gently. I want to be trying to push you, but at the same time, like I say, especially not being in the room, I can't see what's going on. So you've got to be your own judge. If you feel like you're pushing yourself and it feels good, then that's great. If you feel like something doesn't feel right, then just be a bit more gentle or sit this exercise out. But even if you're going to sit out, you can still just be breathing kind of normally, but thinking about the diaphragm and just kind of breathing in that way where you're not breathing in, you're actually breathing out and allowing the air to sort of automatically come back in. But if you do want to challenge yourself a little bit, then we want to try and squeeze out as much air as physically possible, hold it, and then just relax and allow the diaphragm to just drop. The rib cage will expand and you can picture your lungs filling with air, and then you're going to squeeze the air out. So we're just channeling that air. And so the idea, a lot of people, when they first start doing this sort of exercise, and because they think there's some sort of kudos to having a big breath and it lasts a really long time, and there is, let's face it, we all want to be able to, like, you know, from a singing perspective, we want to be able to hold that long note and stuff like this. But for the purposes of this, I don't want you to be like holding back air because you think it will make it last longer. Quite often it doesn't. All that happens is you get to a stage where you need to breathe, and then you've still got air in your lungs, so then as you breathe in, you're just sort of breathing air on top of air, and if you keep doing that, then you're actually sort of hyperventilating. So we just want to be pushing the air out. We're not worried about having a big breath or a small breath or anything like this. You know, if you sort of need a sip of water or something, you know, whatever, we're being good to our bodies. We're just trying to push the air out, then relax, diaphragm drops, air comes back in, and then we're going to push it out. So let's go move on to making a f sound. So I'll just show you. We don't, quite a lot of people actually make the f sound like this, but as you can hear, it's actually, there's not a lot of space for the air to come out of my mouth, and so what happens is you end up, it's almost like just straining when, and we don't want straining, we want nice and relaxed. So a nice sort of open, so the air can come out so that we're still able to push that air out as much as we can. If you want to do the arm movements, that's fine. Try and sort of do it in time with your breathing. So yeah. And just shake it out. So I hope that you have been focusing on yourself, not even looking at me. But if you are looking at me, you will have noticed that several times during that I was sort of going like this, and then I'd notice and correct myself. So make sure that you're, trying to be aware of your body. Like I say, bad habits creep in all the time, and that's okay. You know, it's just part of how your body reacts. And with your conscious mind, you want to try and override that, and hopefully in time you don't need to think about it, but obviously there's a lot of things that you will still need to think about. So for me, if I'm sort of relaxed and I'm kind of at the level where if I'm sort of relaxed and having a good day and everything's good, I quite often don't really need to think of my posture too much. It's not too bad. But if I'm tired, which is most of the time, or having a bad day or something, bad habits creep in. That's okay, it's completely normal. Like, it's annoying because you want everything to be perfect without having to try. But the reality is, you've always got to try. You've always got to be conscious of these things. And if you sort of let things slip, then they slip. So, just don't give yourself a hard time. Just try and notice, try and be mindful of all these things, and just correct them as they happen. Okay, we'll just do one more. We'll do a shh sound. So again, we just want it to be a nice shh, open, kind of forcing out the air. That's what we're using our muscles for, to push the air out. And then we're gonna just relax, and the diaphragm's gonna drop down, and all the air is just gonna flood back in, and we're gonna push out the air again. So a shh sound, please. And shake it out. Another thing I think I've said before, but if you're doing this with somebody else in the room, or just watching me, it's not a competition. If you've got a bigger lung capacity than me or a smaller lung capacity, it doesn't matter. I'm doing it at my pace, you do it at your pace, your friend does it at their pace. We're just trying to stretch our own selves. And I always kind of think, like, if without any kind of training or anything, if you took 10 random people and said, how far down can you go in the splits, everyone's going to have a different level. It doesn't, it's not, no one's better or worse necessarily. It's just, if you want to improve yourself doing the splits, you need to just exercise, but you don't want to force it, because then you'll hurt yourself. So we will just take it at our own pace, but as long as we're trying to push ourselves and stretch ourselves. Okay, we're just gonna roll our arms back. This helps obviously with our shoulders, because like I said, that's a very tense place for a lot of people, and the other way. And now we're gonna I can't think of the words now, but sort of roll our arms. We're gonna go back, and as we get here, we're gonna bend our knees, sort of roll forward. I don't know if you can see. Relax our head so that we're just flopping down like a rag doll, and then curl up, vertebra by vertebra, starting at the bottom of our spine, so that our head is the last thing to come up. So I'll show you from the side as well. We're gonna, as we get to that, we're gonna sort of arch our back, roll down, flop down, and curl up, nice and slowly. Again, if you find this kind of exercise uncomfortable, just sit this one out. You can just continue circling your arms, or just breathe, take a minute, have some water. We just do it one more time, and then we'll move on to something else. So we're just gonna very good. Okay. So now I want you to close your eyes. We're going to breathe through our nose. And we're not going to force anything, but we are just going to be mindful that it's our diaphragm that is pushing the air out. And then when we relax and drop, the air just sucks back in. So we're just going to kind of breathe normally, but we're going to be thinking about how it's all working. And as you're breathing, I want you to just think through all the different parts of your body, specifically focusing on any parts that you personally think you hold tension. If you're not sure, like lots of people don't know until someone sees them and points it out, so we'll just go through every part anyway. I'll talk you through it. So we're just going to breathe and picture yourself. Just go through from the top of your head, down your face. You know, if you're closing your eyes, just have them relaxed and closed, not scrunched up or anything like this. Just nice and relaxed. Down your spine, shoulders, hopefully nice and square. Down your arms, elbows sort of on the outside. We don't want them tucked in to our waist. Nice and round on the outside, but relaxed and floppy. Hands relaxed, down all the way down to the fingertips. Down your spine, your hips. Relax your bum. Down knees, feet. In a nice sort of tripod from your big toe to sort of the outside of your foot and your heel. Equally distributed weight. And you're just going to breathe. Push the air out using your diaphragm. Then relax, drop the diaphragm and the air sucks back in. And as you're breathing and you're constantly just thinking about the diaphragm pushing the air out and relaxing so that the air sucks back in, and you're also just kind of constantly going through all your body, just thinking, is everything nice and relaxed? And now I want you to listen to all the sounds that you can hear outside of the room that you're in. So there might be a car driving past your window, or leaves rustling in the breeze. Anything that you can hear outside of the room or space. You might be outside, but wherever you are, beyond your close proximity. Try to block out the sounds inside the room and just listen to beyond. To come a little bit closer in, and you're just going to listen to any sounds that are inside the room that you're in. So it could be a clock ticking, a radiator, and all the while you're pushing the air out with your diaphragm and relaxing and letting the air suck back in. Closer in, and you're going to listen to all the sounds that your own body is making. So maybe you can hear your breathing, maybe you're breathing silently. That's okay, then you just listen to the silence. Maybe you can hear your heart beating, your tummy rumbling, and all the while you're going through your body, making sure everything's nice and relaxed where it should be. And in your mind's eye, you're picturing your diaphragm pushing up to force the air out of the lungs, and then just relaxing and dropping, and the air just sucks back in automatically. you to try and put all of those things together. So we're still thinking of our posture, trying to relax everything, for everything be in the right place. Pushing the air out using our diaphragm, and then just relaxing and allowing the air to just flood back in as our diaphragm drops. But now we're also listening to ourselves and our own bodies, the room that we're in, and the world outside. And we're kind of, as well as visualizing our lungs and what's happening there, we're also sort of visualizing ourselves in this space, in this time, and listening, and we're just aware of our own bodies and how they connect with the world outside and where we are. We're just going to breathe. Time, just slowly open your eyes, just be aware of your surroundings and come out of the mood that you're in, but continue to be aware and think of your breathing, but just relax out of that. Okay, so like we said for the rest of this week, we're gonna do a little sing-song to finish off. So hopefully, if you were here yesterday, you'll already have the lyrics. We're going to sing Stand By Me by Benny King. I've put a link to the lyrics in the description, so I'll just give you a minute to find them. Make sure you open it in a different tab, otherwise you'll lose this session. Before I play whilst you're finding the lyrics, I just want to say thank you so much for coming, and if you know anybody else that might be interested in these sessions, then spread the word. And okay. Okay, you ready? I'll do a little intro. You have to sing along though, you can't just listen. Sorry, tuning issue. Try again. When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see, well, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid, just as long as you stand by me. So darling, by me. Stand by me. If the sky we look upon should tumble and fall, or the mountains should crumble to the sea, but I won't cry, I won't cry, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. Stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. Thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully see you again tomorrow or next week, whenever you want to come back. Please consider subscribing and have a great week. Bye.